And here we are all together now on AndyTube, and this is part 8 of my series Coco Goes to the Spa. And all together now, meaning that we want to put all those parts that we took off of Coco to clean her and stuff, we want to put them all back together. So this is how I do it, how I find it to work for me. And I always start with the wiring, and this is most of the wiring, the wire harness. This part's actually called the wire harness lead. That's going to go up to the light lead and the light itself, and then the other lead goes to the 2-pin terminal. And the motor connections, that's all attached, you know, to the 3-pin terminal. So you may remember we pushed all that wiring out of the hole for the 3-pin terminal to get it all out of the machine when we wanted to clean it. So now we're going to go the opposite. And then we're going to come to the hole for the 3-pin terminal, and we're going to stuff the wiring back in there. The clunkiest part is that 2-pin terminal and the motor leads, so I'm going to figure a way to get those back in there, and then we will put in the wire harness lead. It's going to go up for the light, and see if we can get this tucked back in. We don't need to screw it in place yet, but we want to get it in there and maneuver it around past all the wire connections and stuff. There, that's pretty good. That should do it. And when you're looking at this, where the plug goes, the plug's kind of flat on the bottom and has a curved top. So that curved top goes up by the hand wheel, and the flat bottom goes towards the bottom of the machine. Okay. So now we're kind of got a little mess here, don't we? But what I do next is put that 2-pin terminal back in the little hole for it here that's made into the plate, bottom plate or bottom casting of the machine. Let's see if I can do that, and just kind of fit right in there. I'll show you the other side in a moment, because we have to put the screws in from the outside. There we go. You can see that there pretty good. Yeah, just got to kind of wiggle it around and line it up. There's two fussy little, oops, let me move around the camera here. There's two fussy little screws that have to go in there to hold it, and I like to get at least one of them in there so this will not be flopping around inside. Is that going to stay there for a moment? Yay! So let's see if I have my little tension screwdriver here, and I had these screws sitting on the magnet for about a week now, hoping that I could do this. Can you see what I'm trying to do here? Hey, I think it worked. Oops, don't say anything till you're done. So I don't need to tighten it down or anything, just snug it up. Good. So the screw won't fall out, and the terminal won't fall back into the machine. so it's going to keep it out of my way here and make it a little bit more manageable. Let me get up here where you can see this better. So next to that motor tube down inside there is a little square channel that goes all the way up to the top of the machine, and that's where we have to get this wire back in. Now you may just be able to, when you're looking at it, go down there and stuff the wire into that channel and, you know, slide it up to the top. And if you can, and I've done that a couple times, but it seems like a lot of times I spend more time fussing with it than accomplishing anything. So what I have also done is taken one of those long skinny barbecue sticks and sticking it down from the top and just taping the wire harness lead, the wires to it, and using it to pull the wire out the top end while I guide the wire from the bottom end. So, is that making any sense? So I'll try and tape this wire to the end here pretty securely without anything sticking out to get caught. I usually wish I wrapped it better, but we'll see. So I'm up on, with my right hand up on top. I'm really kind of pushing the wire more than pulling it with the stick, and I'm just trying to use the stick to guide it into the beginning of that tunnel. I always seem to mess it up somehow. See if I can go up top here and oh, it's real close. The stick came off, but I can grab the tape. Okay, so now I'm running out of room here. Normally that wire does wrap around the bottom of the tube, but for right now I'm just going to pull it up across the tube or over it to be able to pull some slack wire up on top of the machine. So, put this stuff out of the way here a little bit and take a look. And can we see? Yeah, you can see that. So here's my wire with my bad tape job coming up through that tunnel up on top. So that was pretty good for me. Okay, the next thing I want to do is attach the actual light itself. And to get started with that, I'm going to push the wire light lead up through that little grommet. There is where it goes. So, see if I can come over here and see it better and push those. Come on together now. I can push those wire leads. Yeah, bare twisted wire and rubber grommet. Not a good combination. I don't want to twist these too much because I try not to have to strip back the insulation and use more copper because it just gets shorter every time. Okay, so I got that up here, and now I just want to mount the light onto the frame. And there's a little kind of curved spot on the frame that matches up with the metal retention ring. and it takes one screw. So let me find that, and we'll go ahead and we'll get that fastened so it's not flopping around in our way as we go about putting the other things together on the machine. And get you a better view of that, maybe. What's that? Once we get this in here, of course, we're going to want to, you know what? It's a little stiff there. I'm going to take my oiling brush and just put a little dab of oil on there to be sure that if I ever want to take that out, I've got a better chance of it being easier to get out. It was kind of funny because for years I've told people when you take parts off, you know, separate them into like little containers. I especially like to use baggies because if they get dropped, you know, they don't go flying everywhere. But when a friend suggested that I use the egg carton, or in my case apple carton, you know, it saved a lot of time. So I said, yeah, why not? Let's do that. I mean, I know where all these things go now. I've been doing this for years, right? And sure enough, I have the thing sitting on the end of my work table here, and I went to move a lamp around, and the cord caught that thing and sent it crashing to the floor with little screws and parts and a light bulb just going all over the place. So I said, yeah, I guess that's why I tell people, put them in a Ziploc and with a little piece of paper that this is the light, or, you know, it's the feed regulator or bobbin winder parts. So after they're clean and you're putting them back on, you won't get lost. So let me set up here, and then we'll put this wire connectors back on. Okay. So you may remember the original ones that I took off of Coco, the wire nuts, the wire connectors, were the little small black ones here, and I prefer to use one that's the next size up. It has a better metal spring inside for contact. Now you can certainly reuse whatever you find on them with the machines if they're the twist off type. You know, so if you found two of the smaller black ones and you want to put them back on, that's great. That's no problem. The wires, when they're split like this, one is totally smooth and one will have some kind of a identifier. And this one has ridges, has grooves all the way down the wire. So we call that the ridge lead. And I'm going to match it up on the ridge lead wire, terminal wire coming up from below. And I'm just going to put them together, you know, so that the black insulation is even. That's more important than if the copper wire itself is even up here. And get them close together. And I'm going to put the wire nut on, and turning it is going to do any twisting of the wire. You don't really need to twist the wires together. It's better if you don't. So I've got the black insulation leads even, and I'm just twisting while gently pushing down towards the wire. And I like these blue ones because I can cover the end of the insulation better. And there's room for them when you tuck them in here. So that's going to leave me the two smooth leads. Just the smooth plastic coating doesn't have any identifier on it. And the same thing, get my black insulation even so that they'll fit up in the wire nut. Get these close together and go down and start twisting and gently turning, pushing down until they snug up. And now I've got the end of the wires kind of up in there and protected a little bit. Okay, so looks good. And I think I will show you now how to put the oil guard back on there. It's just this little clip that clips onto the frame that's between that little square tunnel and the main body here where your shafts and gears are, and it just clips on with the big part to the front of the machine and the little clips on the back, and it doesn't really, it's not hanging, it's not clipping on there too tight, so I think I'm just gonna push these back clips in just a little bit, so I gotta really clip it on there better. There we go. There. Now it feels more secure. Before it felt like it was just kind of sitting there. It wasn't really like clipped on there. Now, in the casting, in the tripod reinforcement here, you'll see in this one right here, there's a little dip. There's a little place for that light lead to come in there and lay. Kind of helps keep it in place. So you want that, and then on the end of that wire oil guard, there's a little trough. It's not a big one like goes all the way across the top of the machine like in the 400 series. It's just a little guy about a ½ inch long, but it's made to tuck the light lead wire right into there. So your cover will fit flat, and this won't go moving around. So now you're getting the whole idea. The wire is coming up through the grommet. It's in that little cutout place, and it's in the little trough, retaining trough, and it's nice and secure here. It won't be flopping around and making noise or getting into a gear down here or anything. And then we want to come now, and you're going to be able to see, pull that wire down a little bit, because we gotta loop that wire harness around the bottom side of that tube. Okay, so let's get our other terminal screw in here, this little dinky silver one. Uh-oh. I don't think my magnetism wore off already, darn it. I don't know if I can get it in there with my fingertip. Sometimes I think I did. You must all be praying for me to get this over with, huh? Okay, let's tighten them up now with the Chapman hollow ground tip so I can get them good and tight without scratching up the screw head. Nice and snug. You'll be plugging the foot pedal cord in there and stuff. So let's see. And this 301 was wired up to go in a cabinet, so that the foot controller could be plugged in here from below and stay in the cabinet mounted for the need control. And the power lead could just come up here. Some of these you'll just see a blank plate here, and it's not there. It's just wired all to be up here to be a portable machine. So that's in good and tight now. Let's see if I can get my two 3-pin terminal screws in here. I'll change the tip real quick. Get the right one. And make sure that sits flush. Sometimes the wire or the little metal connector tip can get in the way back here, and it won't be even, and if you tighten it hard it'll crack the terminal, the connector, because it's like that Bakelite plastic. You know, it's pretty sturdy, but I mean, it's like 60 years old. So we want to first get our threads to line up properly and get the screw started. There we go. I'm not going to tighten that all the way because I want to put the other one in the bottom and get it started, and then tighten them up evenly, so I'm sure that whole, oops, hard to put a wire nut in the screw hole, huh? Boy, oh boy. You know, I still can't blink my left eyelid, so when I work up over something like this, the eye's kind of watering all the time, and I use drops several times a day to wash it. But when you're standing up kind of looking down, all the moisture goes right to the lower part and sits right over the pupil. So it's kind of like looking at stuff underwater. It's weird. Okay. So I feel good that this is sitting flush. That I didn't get something trapped behind it, because it's nice and even in here. So I'll just be sure it's firmly screwed down, not over tight, because I don't want to have to try and find one of these connectors on eBay or someplace. Hey. Okay, and that for me is usually the worst of the reassembly, the wiring. And it's funny because I worked with telephone wires my whole career, but this is in there good. So I'm just going to put my clean light bulb back in there. This big old 15-watt bayonet style, with the pins kind of up and down. Push it in and turn it towards me a little bit, and those pins lock in. So ho! Ta-ta-da! That's good. Here's my wire lead. I usually wouldn't test the wiring at this point because I'm pretty confident about my wiring, but it's very easy to do. We'll just take our line lead with the 3-pin plug, or 3-hole plug, and we'll plug it in the 3-pin terminal here, right? And then I'll plug it into my electrical lead, and light bulb is on. Light bulb is off. Okay. So my splice, I must have done something right. So let me unplug that, so I don't forget it's plugged in and shock myself. Right, okay. And what do you say we put in next? I think we'll finish up the bottom. Let me lay Coco on her back. And maybe I can lift this up a little bit for you to get a pretty good shot of it. Let's see if I tuck that wire back there better now that I've got that terminal in place. You just want it to be going under that motor tube so that the motor can fit up flush in that tube. Okay. Now I cleaned up the outside of the motor and the pinion gear. This part of Coco, I'm not going to do anything else with the motor because it's a rehab. I'll put a link to a series I did of how to take the motor apart and clean it and replace carbons if you need it and stuff. I did a little series on that. And later in the Coco series, when I'm finished like what I consider the rehab for the people that just wanted that, I'm going to continue on with about a dozen more videos of Coco, doing more of the adjustments and taking a look at the motor and, you know, needle bar height and timing and the hook and all that kind of stuff. But for this part, you would clean this off, and you could use a light solution, you know, like 10% of crud cutter, or just alcohol and a soft cotton rag, and just wipe all the dust and grit and oil off, and take a little toothbrush out. So what I did here, dipped in alcohol, and I just scrubbed the pinion gear and wiped it with a cloth to get it clean. And one thing that I will do before I stick this in is put a real light coating of some oil, especially around the top of the tube up here. And I mean, that's about 2 or 3 drops, and I'll just rub it around here in this part that slides up in the tube. But you're not going to be using weird stuff on your machine because, you know, like 3-in-1 oil and stuff like that, where the additives dry hard and become like a varnish. That's usually what's hard, getting this stuff out, getting these motors out. So just a little, and if you think you overdid it, just pat it up a little bit. So just a little light coating. That's all. So I'm going to stick the motor in. I'm going to line this shaft cover up with the tube, guide tube, and kind of the motor resting flat on the bottom, and just kind of guide it up in there. And then it's got up to there. Now it went all the way into the tube, and I'm going to push it up all the way. And boy, it's hardly got any clearance here, does it? Look at that feed mechanism there. But it's not touching it, it's just close. Whee! It is close. But I think I got it up all the way. And we'll be putting the gear on, the hand wheel gear, mating to it later. So we'll find out. I'm going to put my motor leads back on here, and put this black one on the right pin. Can you see in there? And they just, if you remember, they just push on. So red on the left is right, according to the manual. Red wire on the left pin. But there's been quite a bit of discussion of that over the years, and I have switched them on several different motors, and the motor runs fine. Nothing, I mean, it's not like the motor runs backwards or something. So some of the newer models didn't even have colored caps or wires, you know, only at the very back of the terminal block. So I'm just going to test the motor now. So I'm going to first plug in the foot controller in the little 2-pin see how that's pointed down to go into the cabinet. Got my foot control. Then I'm going to plug in the lead from the electrical outlet and plug that into the electrical outlet. So I just want to hear that motor run. Okay, there's nothing holding it in place. I don't have the bracket or anything. I just want to give it a test for my wiring. I mean, what if I broke a wire back here while I was, you know, putting it back together? Okie dokie, good enough for me. So unplug all my cords. So I guess I didn't screw things up too bad, huh? Now where's that motor retention bracket that you took off? And the screw that holds it in place, right? I'm going to put that back on so the motor doesn't fall out. Just a little brush of oil on that screw, and that little curved end is going to go on the curved part of the motor, and then this part of the bracket shields all the electrical connections. And then there's little cutouts here and here that will help you line up the mounting hole inside, the hole for this little screw. And this feels real smooth. Okay, let's go ahead and tighten that up now. And boy, I have seen people really crank down on this guy. And really the screw is just holding the bracket from moving, and the bracket is holding the motor from moving. So you just need to snug it up so it doesn't wiggle, but you don't really need to crank hard on that at all. Don't bend that bracket. Hey, looking pretty good, and we know the motor works, right? So since we're down here on the bottom, let me find my clean bed plate. That's all clean and fresh smelling. And I'll get my bed plate washer, felt. And my thumb screw. Get on a little bit and then make sure that it's sitting, there we go, sitting nice and flat, kind of recessed down inside. Hey. Ta-da! What do you say, Coco? Nice to have that motor back in there. And were you missing that? It's kind of like your heart, right? I know, you turn so smooth. Whew! Wow, can't wait to take you for a spin. You too, huh? You're going back together really well, Coco. So I think that's going to, we'll take a break here now. Got you about halfway back together. So that'll wrap up part 8A of All Together Now. And we'll continue on with part 8B and finish you up in the next video. Okay? Looking really nice. Yep, very satisfactory. Done a good job so far. So come back and we'll finish up with 8B next time. Thanks for watching, Andy too. Hope to see you there. Take care.